Ladies and gentlemen, you guys asked for it. You've been asking for it ever since I did Vendetta. And now, I am finally delivering. We are going to be doing Black Cats. And oh boy, as the aviation nerd, I am so excited. So, without further ado, let's get into this. So where are we? April 3rd, 1945, south of Okinawa. Beautiful. So, the Black Cats. The Black Cats were a night operations squadron, though they did do operations during the day as well when they had to, of PBY Catalinas, amphibious, as you can see. Landing gear, as well as boat hull. And our variant, though this one doesn't have it for some reason, but our variant... Huh? Where are our wing floats? I'm pretty sure we have wing floats later in the mission. But we should do. But yeah, the Black Cats. They specialized in doing, well, this. Night raids on Japanese shipping. Now the anti-merchant convoy work done by US forces in World War II is not very well known. Generally because it doesn't have the same glitz and glam that the massive fleet battles like Coral Sea and Midway tend to have. But it was a vital part of the American war effort. The submarine campaign in the Pacific launched by the US Navy is the stuff of legend and is probably, in fact I think it actually is, the most successful commerce raiding campaign in military history. Like, since the dawn of naval warfare, there has never been a more effective submarine, well not just submarine, just trade interdiction campaign than the US campaign with their submarines in the Pacific. And as the Black Cats, we are also contributing to it. But I'm going to go even further. We are in what I consider, quite possibly, the most vital aircraft to the Allied war effort of World War II. More important than the B-17 or the B-24 or the Mustang or the Spitfire, this aircraft we're in right now is quite possibly the most important aircraft that the Allies had during World War II. This aircraft is a long-range, amphibious, maritime patrol aircraft. And when I say long-range, I mean it. This thing has... like, it's got like a 2,500 mile range, right? It has 2,500 miles of range. That is a longer range than the first earlier models of 737 airliner. Like, a modern jet airliner does not have the range of this thing, right? And it has loiter time, which for a recon aircraft is really important. It can sit there for years. But I want to draw your attention to what the capabilities of this aircraft is. It's amphibious, so it can perform air-sea rescue, which you'll see later in the mission. It's also long-range reconnaissance and has an insane loiter time, so it can search pretty much half the goddamn ocean if it needs to. Also, just so you know, it is also fully capable of carrying torpedoes and depth charges, which means this thing is fully capable of anti-shipping and anti-submarine warfare. In fact, it's specialized in anti-submarine warfare. This aircraft has more U-boat kills than any other aircraft in World War II, like the B-24 Liberator long-range maritime patrol variant, the Lancasters or Shackletons or whatever you want to call them. Can't remember. Lincoln, I think. The Lincoln, the naval version of the Lancaster. Like, Sunderland flying boats. Like, you factor in every other anti-submarine aircraft in World War II, this aircraft sunk more submarines than all of them. In fact, several Royal Navy Catalina pilots, or Royal Navy Fleet Air Arm Catalina pilots, got the Victoria Cross flying these PBY Catalinas by going above and beyond the call of duty, and even when under heavy anti-aircraft fire from a Wolfpack, would charge down the U-boats on the surface. 2 of them, I think, got the Victoria Cross. This thing is insane. And if you think about it, every major naval victory that the Allies won in the early stages of the war was directly down to the PBY Catalina. The Battle of Midway, it was a PBY that spotted the Japanese fleet. Not only that, the PBY was the first aircraft to sink a Japanese ship during the Battle of Midway. It sunk an oil tanker of the main invasion fleet to Midway Island. It then spotted the main fleet in Kyoto Butai and helped allow the Americans to sink the Japanese Navy. They knew where it was because of the Catalina. And pretty much every other major naval battle, Coral Sea, Leyte Gulf, the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, you name it, whatever great naval battle the Allies fought throughout World War II, the Catalina was almost always the aircraft that spotted the enemy fleet. In fact, it was a Catalina that found the Bismarck when it got away from the British ships chasing them. It was a Catalina that found it. So, this aircraft, more than any other in my opinion, contributed the most to the Allied victory. At least, I mean, maybe I'm being a bit over the top, but at least in naval terms, definitely. Of all the naval aircraft during the Second World War, this thing right here was the most important. And what we're doing right now is actually quite close to what the Black Cats would do. But it also sort of plays in to some of the other stuff that the Catalina would do. Like, this mission's a bit weird because we're shooting up Japanese shipping heading to Okinawa, and I'm assuming that's because the rest of the campaign is set on Okinawa. And of course, we want to factor in kamikazes, which they're the right model of Zero too. A6M5s, and they've got the correct paint scheme. So, that's good at least. Oh, when they're not coming to kill us. But the mission we're actually undertaking is much closer to what would take place through the Battle of Guadalcanal, which is interdicting the Tokyo Express, who were a nighttime group of surface ships who would travel at high speed through the evening. Oh, we have floats now. That's convenient. But the Tokyo Express was a surface force of Japanese ships that would go through the Solomon Islands slot, which is a channel of water in between the Solomon Islands, which go down the Solomon Island chain, down to Guadalcanal. And it was too dangerous to do that during the day because the Americans had taken control of Guadalcanal's airfield. And as a result, they had a large force of US Marine Corps and US Army Air Force pilots there who were wreaking havoc, including a squadron from USS Enterprise after she was damaged. Go have a look at my Enterprise series. It's really cool. For those of you who don't know, on my anime content, I run a documentary series based on the ships of Azure Lane, which is waifuing battleships, for lack of a better word. But I actually do the full historical breakdown of the ships themselves. So if you want to learn about the Guadalcanal campaign and the early naval campaign in the Pacific, I highly recommend watching my videos on Akagi and USS Enterprise. Alright? Speaking of which, Fletchers! Fletcher-class destroyers! Awesome! And F4U Corsairs. Even cooler. If we're the Black Cats, maybe that's the Black Sheep from Pappy Boyington. Huh? Come on, a man can dream, right? Synergy. Synergy is what we're talking about. And kamikazes. Well, Okinawa is rather famous for kamikazes. In fact, the kamikaze campaign around Okinawa was probably the deadliest part of the Pacific War for the US Navy. I think it actually was, considering in terms of ship losses and personnel losses. Primarily because, as you can see here, we've got a lot of troop ships with us. And landing ship tanks with us, LSTs. Which means, consequentially, if a kamikaze hits one of those, the casualty rate is going to be immense. But the fact that we've got Japanese surface ships in amongst these Fletcher-class destroyers... Hey, 5 inches, why are you shooting at the planes? Fuck the planes! Shoot the PT boats! They're the bigger problem right now. Holy shit. But yeah. One thing that I do like about that, though, is that they do demonstrate something that was at least truer in the early war. With the exception of the USS Washington and its engagement with Kirishima, the last battleship on battleship conflict in naval history, and one that was a resounding victory for the Allies, for the most part, the US Navy would avoid at all cost getting into a surface action with the Japanese Navy. Not just because of Yamato and the other battleships that they had, like Musashi, Yamato, and the rest of the Kongo class, but just because the Japanese fleet faction, who were in charge of the Japanese Navy for the majority of the pre-war period, had spent a lot of time developing night attack tactics like we're seeing here, and infiltration tactics, so that their smaller force of ships versus the US Navy would do far more damage. They would get in close in the middle of the night and lay waste to US surface forces. And in fact, I would say until the advent of the Iowas and the later war period after US training and organization had gotten up to scratch, the Japanese Navy was far superior in surface actions than the US Navy. Something that's not often talked about. I highly recommend a documentary on the Battle of Savo Island done once again by the guy I keep talking about, Drakenfeld. Highly recommend that. But yeah, I do like the fact that it shows that the Japanese surface force, even all the way up at this late stage with all these kamikazes and Zeros flying in, like, even now, the Japanese surface force, even with their just PT boats, like, the Japanese surface sailors are no joke, my guys. They are absolutely no joke. They are devastating when they get within range, as we see here. And also, as you can see, the kamikazes are wreaking a horrible toll. But I just love the fact that this game is taking time to shout out not just like the B-17 crews or anything like that of the fighter pilots. They're shouting out the PBY Catalina and her crews. Like, this aircraft is bae. I love this thing. Although I'm pretty sure the Japanese wish they had this many Zeros at Okinawa. And quite frankly, if this is supposed to be the Okinawa invasion force, it is way too small. I'm going to put a photo of Task Force 58 up here, just so you have some idea of how many boats that was. Like, I haven't even been like... The gameplay has just been a background. I've just been ranting about how much I love the Catalina. And I just do. I love this thing. It's bae. It's majestic. I'm out of ammo. That sucks. But... God, I love this thing. Oh. Wrecked. F4U Core says, the whistling death from the sound of wind passing over its gun ports and the nasty sound of its engine. Invasion of Okinawa. Why are there Nimitz-class aircraft carriers?
Status report. The last few months on Okinawa have taken their toll.
You know, Call of Duty World at War, it has plenty of moments, but yeah, Nimitz-class aircraft carriers in 1945, guys, come on. Come on. Anyway, guys, that's it from me. I'll see you next time.